Why is Africa so poor? 1. Energy scarcity is a critical problem. The average person in sub-Saharan Africa consumes 185 kilowatt-hours per year. People in Europe go through about 6,500 kilowatt-hours, and those in America consume 12,700 kilowatt-hours. An American fridge uses more energy than the average African person. Many African businesses rely on generators. Low energy consumption is a product of poverty. However, it is also its catalyst. For Africa to prosper, it must increase its energy consumption. Let's say Africa aims to achieve universal access to electricity by 2030. It must almost double its total generation capacity. 2. Lack of education causes poverty, and vice versa. Over 1 in 3 adults in Africa cannot read. 59 million kids are working instead of going to school. They're fighting poverty for their families. But that's exactly what's keeping them poor. If you can't read or write, your chances of building a decent life are slim. 3. Corruption is Africa's undeclared pandemic. Rich countries have given Africa billions in development aid, but per capita income has only declined below 1970s levels. 50% of the continent lives on less than $1 a day. That's almost double what it was 20 years ago. Corruption, abuse of power, and incompetent authorities are to blame. In Namibia, 2 former ministers are accused of accepting bribes. In Zimbabwe, a businessman is accused of amassing $90 million through a dubious central bank deal. And Somalia is the most corrupt country in the world. 4. African countries can't manage agriculture. The climate of Africa is actually a range of climates. Some parts of the continent suffer from droughts. Other parts struggle with floods. The climate alone makes farming a challenge, but that's not the main problem. Many African governments prioritize mining over farming. Farmers lack basic things such as crops, fertilizers, and irrigation. 5. Africa is a textbook example of the resource curse. The continent boasts abundant natural resources. There's gold, diamonds, oil, bauxite, coltan, and more. But for many African countries, resources don't equal progress. Petroleum, in particular, brings along a slew of problems: waste, corruption, excessive consumption, debt, conflicts, and even wars. As a result, resource-rich countries are growing slower than expected. 6. Logistics are a nightmare. Africa is the world's second-largest continent, yet it has one of the lowest densities of road networks. 80 to 90% of goods in Africa depend on roads for transportation, but there are simply no big logistics companies. Landlocked countries lack direct access to ports, so they can't adequately transport minerals and goods. This problem is gradually paralyzing micro-enterprises. 7. Disease stalls progress. Africa is grappling with AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis. Diseases not only reduce productivity, but also strain budgets. The allocated funds are used to treat existing cases. This leaves little room for preventive measures. In general, African countries are stuck in the cycle of poverty, but there are notable exceptions like the Seychelles, Egypt, and South Africa.